Jen has ordered a decadent seafood tower, king crab legs, lobster tails, and a waterfall of caviar. Pricey? You bet. But Jen worked with Empower on her savings and investment strategy and planned for splurges like these. She got good at money, so she can be a little bad. Ooh, champagne. Empower. Invest well, live a little. Start today at empower.com.
Past performance is not indicative of future returns. Investing involves risk. You may lose money. Advisory services are provided for a fee by Empower Advisory Group, LLC, EAG, a registered investment advisor with the Securities and Exchange Commission. OMG, those shrimps are really jumbo.
You don't technically need this car. You say that out loud to yourself. You say, I have no space. You say, I'm just looking. Then you click. Then you zoom in on photo number 87 and whisper, oh no. Then you text a friend, the one who always enables you. You say to yourself, this is the last one, knowing it is not. You don't need this car. But maybe, just maybe, this car needs you. Bring a trailer. It's never just a car.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. With me is our co-host, Jesse Garcia, the Vice Chair of the State Republican Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk Party. Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. And we're honored and privileged indeed to have one of my favorite people in the world and one of my favorite United States Senators, Ted Budd of the great state of North Carolina. Senator Budd is on the Armed Services Committee on Commerce, Entrepreneurship and Small Business. A wonderful man, a businessman, a real leader in the United States Senate, just as he was in the House of Representatives. Senator, what a great pleasure it is to have you on our show.
Judge, it's an honor as always to be with you. The only thing better would be there in person, but thanks for having me, and thanks to Eric and Jesse as well.
Good. So we're going to turn you over to Eric first, and then over to Jesse. And if these two gentlemen will be kind enough, they'll give me a couple of minutes to talk to you as well.
Well, we'll try not to be so kind. That's all I can say. Anyway, Ted, thanks for joining us. I have to echo Richard's words. I mean, it's hard to imagine somebody as decent and kind and good as Ted Budd, and who's also a United States Senator and elected official. Those things generally tend not to meld, but Ted, you seem to have been able to do that. So we're honored to have you on the show.
Well, great to be here. You got to be just mean enough to win these things, but I guess nice enough for people to like you. So somehow we've struck the balance, at least for now.
Nice and tough. There you go. So I want to start by talking about what's going on in Gaza, but first I want to juxtapose it to what just happened this past week. So this was the 80th anniversary of Japan surrendering to the United States. To much fanfare, Japanese representatives came out to the USS Missouri off the coast of Japan and surrendered only after the United States bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki with a nuclear weapon. After the United States clearly and utterly obliterated their enemy and won the war. Before then, Japan had no designs on surrendering. I want to compare that to what's going on in Gaza. Of course, Hamas attacked on October 7th. They started the war. They committed the worst atrocities against Jews since the Holocaust. And yet, ever since October 8th, there always seems to be this pressure on the Israelis to stop, for the Israelis to not win, to save Hamas. I don't understand the juxtaposition or the comparison as to why that would be the case. The Israelis are now, Netanyahu has now ordered that the IDF attack Gaza City, which is the last stronghold of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. That's where the remaining hostages are. That's where the remaining vestiges of Hamas is. And yet the whole world is going crazy, setting their hair on fire, lying about what the Israelis are doing there, lying about a genocide, lying about a famine, lying about Israeli tactics, lying about Israeli goals. So first, I want to get your sense of what is it what's your view of Netanyahu's strategy of taking Gaza City in an effort to obliterate Hamas, and what, if any, explanation do you think explains the juxtaposition of why there was such great fanfare over the American victory in Japan and the surrender in the Missouri, and the hand-wringing and the hair on fire with the Israelis trying to win in Gaza?
Since you started with Japan and the remembering the 80 years, It's very personal. I come from a small rural county in North Carolina. It's Davie County. It's the home of Thomas Farabee, who was the bombardier on board Enola Gay, which dropped one of the two nuclear or the atom bombs. And so even a small county, has great reverence for the end of the war and how it ended. And we all wish we didn't have to do that. But the argument was that it ultimately saved lives. Yes, it was aggressive. Yes, it was severe. But the Japanese at that point were so locked in that there was no other way other than total annihilation and defeat to get them to end the war. And we see you can draw a parallel to Gaza and what's happening with Hamas. We've seen repeated lies. Look, I've gone over there to negotiate to get the hostages home, and thank goodness we have Keith Siegel home. Aviva was home. Two of the hostages. Keith was from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So this became very personal very quickly. We want Ite Chin and Omer Nutra home. We don't believe that they are alive, but we need them home still. And and there are others that are still being held hostage. So it's just a cruel, it is a cruel organization of Hamas that will lie and cheat and steal and do anything, including to the detriment of their own people. So they must be completely decimated. Now, if they change their mind, if they said, look, we'll lay down our arms, and if that were to happen, then there would be peace in the region. If Israel were, on the other hand, they're not going to do this, but if they were to lay down their arms, it would be the end of Israel. And, of course, that would be Hamas's goal. And we can't let that happen. So if you want peace in the region, the way Hamas has prosecuted their side of the battle this far, they have to be completely eliminated. They are not honest actors. They're not there for the good of their own people, the Palestinians in the region, and they need to be rooted out. And that is exactly what Netanyahu is doing. I think he wishes there was another way and that it was easier, but he's willing to take his lumps politically. He's willing to be misunderstood by many in the world. And, the IDF has just been phenomenal in this. And getting to the root of it, many months ago with Operation Midnight Hammer, I think that stopped a lot of the problem emanating from Iran. But, of course, there's still the world's largest state sponsor of terror. So, look, we're getting at this from both ends, whether it's the proxies like Hamas or in Lebanon with Hezbollah. But these people are not, you can't negotiate with them. We've said a long time ago, you can't negotiate with terrorists. And Netanyahu's not doing that. And President Trump, by the way, he's not doing that either.
So I guess another connection we can make between what's going on in Gaza and World War II, a lot of people don't realize. Hamas, of course, is an ideological descendant of the Muslim Brotherhood, which was founded in Egypt in the 1920s. And it's a national socialist movement. National Socialists, for people who don't know, are Nazis. That's where the word Nazi comes from, National Socialists. So the Israelis are actually literally fighting Nazis, much like we were fighting during the Second World War. And just to point of personal privilege, you talk about how personal this was. My father was training for the invasion of Japan when Truman ordered the dropping of the bomb. So Harry Truman saved my father's life along with probably another million Americans. So hats off to him. But I just want to come back to Hamas for 1 second and the point you were making about how horrific they are. The Israelis have offered, as you point out, the opportunity for Hamas to surrender and give up the hostages and to end the siege of Gaza, but they have said no to date. Do you have any sense as to whether or not I've heard that there are more negotiations going on. There's another. The Trump administration has made an offer for another ceasefire arrangement. Can you shed any light on that? Have you heard any more about that?
Well, our MO, and I believe this of the Israeli, is always going to show good faith, willingness to negotiate all the way to the 11th hour. But we're also very street smart, and we're wise to how Hamas is going to handle this. We don't believe them to be good faith actors, but even without reciprocity, we're still going to give them the opportunity. But we're going to be on guard as if it's not well received. So I think that's the approach from the Trump administration and from the Netanyahu administration as well.
So I want to just shift gears for a second to your home state of North Carolina. Last year there was a horrific flood, rains that caused devastation to the western part of North Carolina. I was wondering if you can give us a status report as to how the recovery was going. And also, if you could shed some light, do you see any difference between the way FEMA operated under the prior Biden administration and the current Trump administration?
Oh, absolutely. And thanks for remembering this. September 27th will be the date of remembrance for us when you saw a tremendous, there used to be a statement which was rent at the beach and buy in the mountains. And of course, we have both in North Carolina, kind of like you do a little bit in New York, lower Appalachians. But it came up from the Gulf and just dumped, in some places, 30, maybe 40 inches of water in some instances. It concentrated into the riverbeds and then it was a geological event. Mountains slid, half of mountains would slide off. Roads were gone. 108 people died. And it was horrific. Tremendous amount of debris. And it came absolutely to a standstill. The private sector, groups like Samaritan's Purse, individuals that were maybe helicopter hobbyists around the country flew in, began to help, Red Cross. So they were the best. And then you would see National Guard was there. The 101st, 82nd Airborne was there. So grateful to them. But when it came to former Governor Cooper, and this is something I'll jump off for a second. Senator Rick Scott from Florida, who has had lots of hurricanes and dealt with them well as a governor before he was senator, he said, Ted, always know that FEMA is only as good as your governor. And we just saw bureaucratic delay after bureaucratic delay when it came to former Governor Cooper. And by the way, now he's running for U.S. Senate in North Carolina. So I saw when President Trump came into office, his first visit was to Western North Carolina. We saw them cut through a lot of red tape. Look, we still got a lot of work to do out there, some debris still to remove, some roads and bridges to rebuild. But I had a guy who runs a heavy equipment company call me yesterday and said, Ted, thank you for your work. We're getting a lot done out there. There's still more work to do, but we're getting a lot done. And I'm grateful this man in a small business in Western North Carolina is grateful for President Trump's leadership. So yes, to answer your question, very different than it was before.
Yes, I mean, under the rubric of there but for the grace of God go I, my daughter lived in Asheville and moved about a month before the storm. Came back to the mountains in New York. But, we wish the people of Asheville and Western North Carolina well, and we hope that there's a complete recovery of the region, and we're glad that no more lives were being lost.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So let's just shift to D.C. for 1 second. There's been a serious problem of getting some of President Trump's nominees confirmed, and there's talk amongst Republicans of changing the process to get some of these people confirmed. Can you speak to what some of the strategies might be to work around Democratic obstruction?
If you go back all the way to Bush administration number 1, you can go back even further into Reagan. Most of the appointments, when they were nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate, those confirmations were done on the Senate floor either in group votes or en bloc, or they were done with a unanimous consent or a voice vote, which moves things through very quickly. It minimizes procedural hurdles. And what the Democrats have done is they have taken the bulk of nominations passing in the easy way, and they have reduced that to absolutely zero. So everything has to be done with procedural votes, cloture votes. And if you take 1,200 nominees and you multiply that by a maximum of 4 total votes per nominee, that's 4,800 votes. And if you get about 20 per week, that puts you out into infinity in the future as far as the Senate is confirmed. And that's exactly what they're doing. And it's all because of a Trump resistance model rather than a working on behalf of one's own constituents. And these are non-controversial nominees. So the goal is to get the send it back to where it has functioned before. And we're seeing that. We're moving towards changing some rules so the Senate functions better than it did before Chuck Schumer was in place, and voting for some of these in block. If they come out of committees, or you've got, I think right now we have maybe 140, give or take, nominees that are backlogged, we can take these 140 and vote them out in just a handful of votes. And the will of the people gets done, but with less bureaucratic and obstruction from the Democrats.
Well said, Senator. Jesse, questions for the Senator.
Senator Bud, thank you so much for joining us. And I can understand, thank you. I can understand why you're so well regarded by my two, our anchor and my other amigo, as we are here. It's because you're someone who you're a man of faith, and I think that's what more of our elected officials need to be, and what is the difference between Republicans in leadership positions and those from another party is that we are grounded in faith. And I want to thank you for your service to our country, and of course. Also, I've noticed that you're a member of law enforcement, and just stay a little bit with D.C., but maybe a little bit further out. We've over the weekend, we've seen a lot of attacks on law enforcement officers, whether it be ICE officers in L.A., ICE officers and headquarters in Portland just over the past weekend, where it seems that they have doubled down on their sanctuary policies and such. I'm just wondering, where is the Senate or in cooperation with the administration to protect these officers and protect all law enforcement? And this is a pet peeve of mine, Senator. You know, it's amazing that the Democrats were able to use facial recognition to arrest and identify January 6th individuals, but not able to use the same technologies in 2020 during the riots in our urban cities, or certainly at our protests just recently in Los Angeles and in Portland.
You know, it's heartbreaking what they are supporting. The Democrats used to be somebody you could have some reasonable collaboration with, but right now we're seeing them supporting pro-crime, pro-illegal immigration, and a lot of that is human trafficking. It's a lot of cartel activity, so pro-cartel, pro-burning cities. It's absolutely sad, the stuff that they are doubling down on, because of the fact that they resist the policies of Donald J. Trump and the policies of the Republican Party. Our policies are better for people. They're better for cities. They're not just rural policies. It doesn't matter what your ethnic background is. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter if you're urban or rural. Our policies will make your life better and more prosperous and more safe. So the stuff that the Democrats are after, really, it causes cities to implode. It causes housing values to drop. I mean, it hurts people. So I have a hard time understanding how they think they're going to win elections on this. But, as far as supporting law enforcement, that's something that's been consistently part of my policies. I've never been in law enforcement myself. I own an indoor shooting range in North Carolina. My first customer was a local police force. And the training captain came to me and said, I want to, use your range. And I asked, really, you want me to open my range and to the public? He said, yeah, because you need to never underestimate the need of the public to have a safe place to shoot. So whether it's policy-wise here in Washington or whether it's my own business, we're supporting the Second Amendment and helping our communities responsibly enjoy firearms.
Senator, we only have a couple of minutes. I know you have a hard out. I just want to get your thoughts on the recent events where the administration took out that Venezuelan cartel drug ship.
Great, Judge, what great footage to show. They did that for multiple reasons. One, they said, don't do this again. Take us very seriously. I hope that the message is heard loud and clear around the world that the United States will not tolerate narco-terrorism. And they're seeing that. And if it's Trinidad Aragua, I believe, they were trafficking to the U.S. It was confirmed, and hopefully that prevents ones from happening, and it just shows in a very visceral way that we take stability in the U.S., safety in the U.S., anti-drug, anti-cartel, anti-narcotics very, very seriously. So I think that was a brilliant move, and it was well vetted, and they did the exact right thing.
I think, Senator, there's going to come a time we're going to have to deal with Maduro and Venezuela because we can't allow that state to be a narco-terrorist state.
No, I mean, they're saying there's connections between TDA and Maduro. So that's a lot of dark forces there. And again, our goal is to protect the U.S., and we certainly did that with the U.S. Navy. So God bless them, and I'm grateful for those protecting our shores.
Well, we know that Iran and Hezbollah is also in Venezuela as well. So
there really is
influences from the back doors.
Yeah, this really is an international axis of evil working against the United States of America and Western civilization.
Oh, I see it. I mean, I saw the cartels when I was in South America last year. And look, this is right in our back door. We need to make sure we're not just looking east and west. And Eric, you and I have had numerous conversations about issues in the Middle East, but we need to be looking to our south. We need to be looking to the Arctic. And because China, through their Belt and Road Initiative, will come in our back door as well. They'll come in under stated innocent purposes, but there's a malevolent purpose always behind it.
Well, Senator, on behalf of Chairman Garcia, Eric Levine, and myself, it's been absolutely delightful having you on the show. We hope to bring you back when you have time to come back on the show and keep us updated on things going on in Washington that are important to the American people. I want to say you're a great person. You're a great United States Senator. God bless you and your family, and we value your friendship and your leadership. Thank you, Senator, for being on the show.
Well, Judge, Eric, Jesse, thank you all so much for having me. God bless, and have a great end of the week.
Thanks, Ted. You too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, we're just finishing up our first segment with Senator Ted Budd, a great senator from North Carolina, a distinguished gentleman, a leader of Congress, both first in the House and now in the United States Senate. And we'll be taking a break. Please stay with us. We'll be back in but a few moments with more important conversation on Let the Record Show. Please stay.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Anyone can follow. It takes something special to be an original, which is why the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV arrives with new ways of surrounding you in luxury, including the ultra-wide 48-inch panoramic display and the multi-sensory Lincoln Rejuvenate experience. A true original never stops evolving. So meet the 2025 Navigator, the original that's all new and better than ever. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Navigator are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
Leading a business today means constantly adapting. On the Executive Insights podcast, brought to you by AWS, global leaders share how they're making tough calls, testing bold ideas, and putting innovation into practice, generative AI included. If you're looking for real stories behind what's working, this is it. Subscribe to the Executive Insights podcast today, available now on all major podcast platforms.
$1 million, free to play. You just need to survive. It's the Fanatics NFL Survivor Pool. Pick one team to win each week. Get it right, move on. Get it wrong, you're out. The last fan standing take home a guaranteed $1 million cash prize. And for every player who joins, we add $1 to the pot, up to $10 million. The Fanatics NFL Survivor Pool. Play free on the Fanatics app. App access open to all. Must be 21 plus and joined by 9/8 to play. No purchase necessary, U.S. only, void where prohibited. Subject to complete terms, see fanatics.com/game rules.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Republican Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party. With us is our good friend, esteemed colleague, co-host, Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. In our first segment, we had Senator Ted bud of North Carolina, a great United States senator and a good friend of ours, and just a lovely, lovely man. We're lucky to have somebody of his character and ability in the United States Senate. Gentlemen, I want to turn our attention to that great city of Chicago, or that once great city of Chicago. I used to say, as a New Yorker, it's a nice place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there.
I used to love Chicago.
I love Chicago. I have the Chicago Art Institute. They have a lot of great restaurants
Wrigley
and hotels.
Field, Wrigley
they have
Field,
a lot of great things in Chicago, but I can no longer say it's a great place to visit because it's not a safe place to visit. So I want to bring your attention to this. The mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, and the governor of the state of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, seem to have this view, Jesse and Eric, that somehow President Trump, by his willingness to aid the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois in protecting the citizenry of that state, is somehow doing something wrong, unlawful, unconstitutional. And Brandon Johnson, who Rich Lowry of the National Review has called that moron, and I have to agree, he is saying that there should be a resistance against, they should fight against if federal support comes in. Now, it seems to me as a lawyer, he's getting perilously close to going over the line and aiding and abetting and urging an insurrection. So I think Chicago needs the help. The track record in District of Columbia has been exemplary. It's really helped the District of Columbia. There are a lot of cities that need the help. If the locals can't do the job, it's the obligation of the president to help defend and protect the citizenry. Eric, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, there is an open question as to whether or not Donald Trump does have the legal and constitutional authority to delegate the National Guard or any other troops, the Marines, in a state or a city without the request of the sitting governor. D.C. is different because it's the district, it's a federal jurisdiction. The president has much more power, much more latitude. So that is an open question. But I will say this. My son served in Syria in 2018, 2019, fighting ISIS. And I remember worrying every night for his safety. He was as part of Operation Inherent Resolve because it was a war zone. And as anybody, any family who's had a family member in a war zone, you worry. But it dawned on me, maybe what's the comparison between what's going on in Chicago and what's been going on in some of these war zones? So I took statistics. One is from the Chicago Police Department, which talks about the number of homicides, actual killings, in Chicago from 2001 to 2024. And why did I pick that date? Well, 2001, of course, is 9/11 and the beginning of the War on Terror. And then I compared it to the number of deaths, American deaths, military deaths, from our deployed forces around in the Middle East as part of the War on Terror. So, shockingly, in the city of Chicago, homicides from 2001 through the end of 2024, now this is based on Chicago Police Department statistics, there have been 13,478 homicides in the city of Chicago.
Repeat that number for our audience.
13,478. Now compare that to Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation New Dawn U.S. casualty status. That was another effort in the Middle East and the Gulf. Operation Enduring Freedom. That's Afghanistan. Operation Inherent Resolve. That's Syria. That's where my son fought. And Operation Freedom Sentinel. That was like ongoing operations in Afghanistan after we changed from a war footing to a more government prop-up policy. And in that same time period, there were 5,478 American deaths. That's close to a third. It was actually safer to be in a war zone in the Middle East than it was to walk the streets of Chicago from 2001 to 2024. Now you talk about the brilliant argument from Mayor Johnson and to a lesser extent from Governor Pritzker, who is obviously running for president and needs to bash Trump. They talk about how the death toll has decreased In 2021, there were 805 killings. And in 2024, there were 581 killings. So by their measure, if you listen to them, these are great strides. There were only 581 murders in the city of Chicago. We're safe. Everything's okay. These people are crazy. They are crazy. This is what they want to bring to every city in the United States. This is what they consider safe. Who is it they are protecting? I mean, let's be honest. They don't care because mostly these are black-on-black killings. That's why they don't care. If some whites were killed, or if a white killed a black, or a black killed a white, or a cop killed somebody, they'd go crazy. But it is clear that they are not motivated in any way, shape, or form to protect the African-American community in Chicago because they are the ones who are predominantly the victims of these crimes. Donald Trump, in contrast, wants to save the lives of every Chicagoan, irrespective of their race or color, or religion, or the sexual orientation. But this is what they hold out. This is how they prove in their minds that Donald Trump wants to be a dictator because he wants to save lives. And somehow they are saving democracy by letting people shoot one another. The whole thing's crazy.
Jesse, your thoughts?
I echo Eric's sentiments, and those stats are mind-boggling. Just in round numbers, 13,000 murders in the same period as 5,000 American soldiers in a war zone. But I think we don't need to look much further than just a week ago when this show airs. You know, on that Friday, Governor Pritchard and Mayor Johnson were saying that Illinois and Chicago is safe, that they don't need Donald Trump. In fact, about the same time, Donald Trump or his security forces in the city to stop the spread of crime there, violent crime, I may add. At the same time, they were having a rally where Mayor Johnson was doing a rallying cry to make the citizens be against law enforcement and against these efforts to bring safety to the community. At the same time, the stats came out from the Chicago Police Department about more than 54 shootings over a weekend and 7 murders. In no calculation, whether it's 13,000 killings since 2001, or even just a weekend, 7 murders and 54 shootings. That city is not safe. They are doubling down on the failed policies, and it's unfortunate. It looks like the Democratic Party, and I really do need to say this, as disappointed as I am, that presidential and partisan politics are getting in the way of public safety here. We have individuals running for president, running for governor, years before the nominations or the primaries calendar is going to be set. And what they're doing is that they're doing it at the expense of the citizenry. What I am heartened by is that it's the people of Chicago, the individual, the residents, all race, creeds, religions that are calling upon the Trump administration to come in and assist them to bring law and order to the streets of that crime-ridden metropolis right now. It's them because they've seen the changes that were done in Washington, D.C. But absolutely, there is an open question as to what authority the president has to be able to bring the National Guard and to bring order there. But certainly, the citizens see it. The citizens see crime going down in D.C. while they're experiencing over a weekend 7 more murders, 54 more shootings.
Well, I do love that Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson make this big pitch about how safe it is while they are guarded by armed guards.
Yes, and their press conference, I think Governor Pritchard's press conference was on the boat somewhere. So I mean, it wasn't even near the communities that were in dire need.
Well, what's interesting about this whole situation, Jesse and Eric, there's a consistency in the Democratic Party's approach to all this. And that consistency is as simple and as direct as this. If Trump is for it, they're against it. If Trump says that there's an invasion going on by cartels, They're killing us with the fentanyl. There's a collaboration between the gangs and the cartels, so-called sovereign states like Mexico and Venezuela, to put in the poison into our country, and you have to go after them. They say, "Oh no, you're denying the due process rights of the gang members." Oh, really? These are terrorist organizations. They've been so designated as terrorist organizations. They are fair game. As Secretary of State Rubio has pointed out, these people with their poison are coming into the United States to kill our people. In the last couple of years, you've had almost 250,000 deaths through fentanyl. So Trump is protecting the people of the United States against this invasion. And in fact, it is an invasion, and we have to do something about it. And in the last segment, the point I raised with Senator Ted Budd is I think that we really have to recognize that there's this amalgamation of interests to destroy America. It's China, it's Russia, it's North Korea, it's Cuba, and it's Venezuela. Now, Venezuela...
And Iran.
And Iran. Let's not forget Iran, of course. But what do we have? We have a need to look at reality hard in the face and to deal with it. If we sit by idly and keep saying Trump is the enemy and he's destroying democracy and he's doing this wrong and that wrong, we are going to be destroying ourselves. As my favorite Supreme Court Justice, Robert Jackson, used to say, the United States Constitution is not a suicide pact. Trump recognizes that. He's up to the game to protecting and defending this country. Biden not only didn't protect and defend this country, Biden and Obama before him sold out this country. We wouldn't be in the problems we are today but for Obama with his ridiculous Iran deal, which gave all the weaponry, all the money, all the ability to build nuclear weapons against Western civilization in the hands of Iran, to foster and to help Islamist terrorism all across the globe. We wouldn't have that but for Obama, and we wouldn't have the problem we have in the cities and across this country, and every city and every county is now an open city. It's a border city. Every county is a border county because the invasion that they allowed of illegal migrants were not vetted and did nothing to protect us. And now Trump is trying to get them out, and you have U.S. District Court judges appointed by Clinton or Obama or Biden. So, you can't do that. You can't deport these people. They have no right to be here in the first place. Get them out of our country. When people come with boatloads of fentanyl and narcotics to destroy our people and a designated terrorist organization, we have every right and obligation to blow them out of the water. Eric, final thoughts for this segment.
Yeah, so we talk about, you made the point about Russia, China, and North Korea, and then the lesser axis actors of Iran, Cuba, and Venezuela. Look, these actors clearly want to undermine the United States. They want to end the American-led world order. They want to replace it with a axis of tyranny. And it behooves us to take on the weakest links in that axis. And those are Iran, and we've recently had great success against Iran with the Israelis when we bombed the nuclear facilities. And here we have now a great success against Venezuela. Interesting statistic. In today's Wall Street Journal, they make the point that Maduro gets more revenue from the illicit narco drug trade than he does from his oil revenues. So if you cut off his ability to trade illicit drugs and narcotics, his regime falls. That's also another reason that we want to do this. But it's also keep in mind 50,000 Americans die a year from drug overdoses. This is a war against the American people. Now, that's not to say that people don't have personal responsibility, and we need to teach our children to stay away from drugs, which is why I've always been against the legalization of marijuana, but that's another topic. But by cutting, we can solve in large part the drug overdose situation in the United States and make the United States geopolitically safer by undermining Venezuela. And if you take away Venezuela, Cuba falls, and then we've gone a long way of pushing some very bad actors out of the Western Hemisphere. As we mentioned before with Senator Budd, Hezbollah and Iran are in Venezuela. You have narco-terrorists in Venezuela. You have Russia and China in Cuba. So this is just part of a larger piece of making the Western Hemisphere safer for the American people.
All right, this is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted commentator, essayist, and attorney Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We'll be back in about a few moments. Please stay with us for our final segment for more interesting and important conversation.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Sweat moves you forward. Degree Antiperspirant is here to make sure it never holds you back. Clocking in, sweat. Lunch meeting, sweat. Biking home, sweat. Degree Advanced is for the hustlers who put in the sweat. The world's #1 antiperspirant with up to 72-hour sweat and odor protection. Degree, here for sweat. Try it today.
Optimism isn't sunshine and rainbows. It's fixing things, changing the way we fix things. It's running the world on smarter energy. Because if optimism never stops, then change can't either. GE Vernova, the energy of change.
What if buying a new appliance felt like a win for your home and your wallet? Save up to 50% plus up to an extra $600 on select major appliances at the Best Buy Appliances Labor Day sale. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy, imagine that.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Got a car to sell but no time to waste? Hop on to Carvana.com to get a real offer for your car in seconds. All you have to do is enter your license plate, answer a few quick questions, and if you accept the offer, Carvana will pay you as soon as you hand the keys over. They even offer same-day pickup in many cities. Save your time, score some cash, and sell your car the convenient way to Carvana. Pickup times vary. Fees may apply.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Well, it's fall in New York, and every fall in New York, we have the meeting of the United Nations. It gathers in New York. It's under the police protection of the New York Police Department, diplomatic immunity for all these people from all over the world. They come here, they wine themselves, they dine themselves. We pay for it. The citizens of New York City pay for it. We're not reimbursed either by the state or the federal government. And my problem with the United Nations is...
Just one. You only have one problem with the United Nations.
Yes. That it is a
They don't pay their parking tickets. I'm sorry.
That's it. Throw them out. Get them out of here. They don't pay the parking tickets. With that, you'd have to throw out some of the members of the city council, Jesse. So, let's be clear.
That would be a good thing.
That would be a great thing.
It'd be a wonderful thing.
Wonderful thing. I'll give you a list. We can get rid of some of these people. This is my problem with the United Nations. It's failed in its mission to keep peace. It's become an apologist for the worst actors on the planet. It's a cauldron of anti-Semitism and hypocrisy. It's a playing field to attack America, attack Israel, a playground for anti-Semitism. The hypocrisy is rampant. It's a clear and present danger to world peace and world stability. If they want to have United Nations, that's fine. Put them somewhere else. Move them to Geneva if they want. Get them out of the United States. Get them out of New York City. And stop giving them lip service that they're doing wonderful things. Their non-government organizations that they fund have been apologists for Islamist terrorism. They make money out of it. They make all kinds of corrupt deals. It is an awful institution that's been totally corrupted from its great purposes. Eric.
Yeah, so much of the UN, as you point out, is very anti-Western, very anti-American, very anti-Semitic, very anti-Israel. But one of the reasons why it is so important to some of these very bad actors is because they can't defeat America militarily, they can't compete with us economically. So they try to use the soft power of these international organizations to weaken the United States, to interfere with our sovereignty, and that only happens if we let it happen. So we can't let that happen. But what we're going to see this time around, once again, is this ongoing bashing of Israel. You know, the European countries led by France and England, along with Canada, the Netherlands, Australia, they're all now pushing for a Palestinian state, this two-state solution. And while they're all pushing for this two-state solution,
what demands are being made, by the way,
on
Hamas?
Zero demands on Hamas. But to the Trump administration's credit and to Secretary of State Marco Rubio's credit, Marco Rubio's going to Israel. He'll be there around the same time the General Assembly is meeting. That'll send a message. But they've also denied visas to the Palestinian Authority. Mahmoud Abbas is not going to be coming. He's not going to be allowed to come to the United Nations, come to New York to spew his venom and to cause trouble. So when Macron gathers his minions together to meet about a two-state solution, the Israelis won't be there, the Americans won't be there, the Palestinians won't be there. I guess they're just going to have baguettes, drink tea, and talk about the wonders of it all. But that's not going to stop the UN, because they're still going to want to push these narratives about how evil and disgusting and horrible the state of Israel is. And there's this new, and is it just by way of an example of this, Secretary General Antonio Guterres, just to point out and prove that there is a genocide going on in Gaza, quoted the International Association of Genocide Scholars, who has determined that there is a genocide going on in Gaza. Now, who and what is the International Association of Genocide Scholars, the IAGS? Well, apparently, anybody can become a member of the IAGS if you send in $30 and your picture. And it's so farcical that somebody actually signed up Adolf Hitler with a picture of Cookie Monster and Palpatine from Star Wars. They are actually members of the IAGS. And so there supposedly was some vote taken. There were 500 members of the IAGS. And the president of the IAGS said, see, 90 scholars, 90% of the scholars have proven that there's a genocide. We've determined that there's a genocide. Now, that pointed out that of the 500, only 121 voted, and only 90 voted and said that there was a genocide, and they will not identify who these 90 people are. But this is the organization to which Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General, points to prove that the Israelis are engaged in this genocide. This is the same UN, of course, that established UNRWA, the United Nations Relief Workers Association, which was created for the sole purpose of making sure Palestinians stay in refugee camps so they can't be resettled and lead better lives, so that they can be used as political pawns and weapons against Israel. And UNRWA, many members of UNRWA participated in the October 7th attack against Israel. But somehow the Israelis and the United States are supposed to take this organization seriously, and Macron and his fellow misdirected Western leaders are using that as the anchor to beat Israel into a two-state solution. But no one has explained to us yet what has indicated to any of these people that the Palestinians have any interest in two states. The Israelis did. They used to. In 1948, the Israelis said yes, and the Arabs said no. In 2000, same thing. In 2005, same thing. In 2008, same thing. And actually, probably up to October 6th, there was a huge segment of the Israeli society that would have been perfectly content with a two-state solution. The problem is the Palestinians have always said no, have never had any interest.
What do they mean when they say from the river to the sea?
Well, of course, river to the sea is to destroy the state of Israel. And we should remind our listeners to what the genesis of that is. The genesis of that was in November of 1941, the Mufti of Jerusalem, who was the undisputed leader of the Arab world in British-mandated Palestine, who was exiled from there because the British were controlling it, World War II was going on, and he was pro-German. He met with Hitler in Berlin in November of 1941, and he told Hitler that if Hitler agreed, that if they agreed to engage in the final solution in exterminating Jews and have a Jewish policy similar to that of the Nazis, from the river to the sea, to kill all the Jews, he asked Hitler, would he agree that he would recognize, that he would allow the Arabs in Palestine to become part of Greater Syria. Not get their own state, but to become part of a Greater Syria. There's never been any movement towards a Palestinian state, or no one's ever cared about a Palestinian state until Israel was created in 1948. And even then, there has never been, and still is not, any movement in the Arab world for a two-state solution. There is only the view for a one-state solution, an Arab state that either has all Jews exterminated or a subjugated Jewish minority. But this organization, the UN, they're going to bring about all this wonderful change and all this kumbaya moment for peace when there now is no longer any sentiment or support from left or right in the Israeli body politic. You know, maybe you have some real extremists on the left that would still be interested in a Palestinian state. But there is no longer any political support for a Palestinian state on Israel's border, which will absolutely be not just an existential threat to Israel, but to the Sunni Arab neighbors of the Gulf. It's not going to happen. These people, France, England, Australia, Germany, I'm sorry, we'll put Germany to the side. Canada, they are driven by their demographics. They have exploding Muslim communities. The Jewish community
because of their open borders.
Because of the open borders, and the Jewish community is very, very small. So they are trying to patronize their Muslim residents and Muslim citizens. And for someone like Macron, who is now domestically completely irrelevant, he's trying to fight to become relevant on the world stage, but he's really making himself simply look like a clown. So all these guys can come together and go to the UN, come to the UN and say all these wonderful things, whatever they want to do. I just hope they spend a lot of money at restaurants and shows and all kinds of good things, because they contribute absolutely nothing else to society.
Jesse, your turn.
Contribute nothing else to society. Well, how much can we follow that up? We joke about the real problems of traffic and unpaid parking tickets that the UN brings. But what really has my problem is that for more than 25 years, if not even further than that, the UN has lost its way. It has been an international platform for anti-Semitic views, anti-American views, anti-freedom views, liberty, anything about the Western society of freedom-loving countries. That has been now the minority there. The UN and its partners, and let's remember, it is a scandal-ridden organization, from scandals with aid for food, for sexual harassment, bribes from the Secretary General down to the bureaucracy. This is nothing more than, as both of you have pointed out, it's an anti-Israel, anti-American, anti-democracy and freedom-loving society entity right now. It seems that anybody that's on the side of good is now turned as the evil in our world, and those who are perpetrating terrorism, and they're suppressing religious freedom and suppressing all people. They are the victims that are being elevated. Their partners are sketchy. Their partners are corrupt. This entity is corrupt. It has lost its way, and I truly don't see what purpose it really truly serves anymore.
Well, let me switch gears. We have 5 minutes to go, and I want to raise this issue. There's been a summit going on in China, and that included North Korea, Russia, China, a couple other places, but it's very tellingly and troubling, India. India is the world's largest democracy. Why is Modi there in the first place? What is he trying to accomplish? The short answer is he's been getting a lot of profits out of oil, because what happens is the Russians will sell the oil to India. India will repackage it with their label and then sell it back to Europe. So Europe, which has been sustaining all this rhetoric about protecting Ukraine, has been supplying the money for the Russians to wage war against the independent sovereign country of the Ukraine. The whole thing is ridiculous. And what do? They just had this big military demonstration. And the purpose of that demonstration was to pound their chest and to say to Donald Trump and to Western civilization and the United States, look at us. You want to have a war with us? We're ready, willing, and able to fight. And fighting us, we'll win because we are the future and you're just a historical relic. And I submit to you that it's time we grew up. We understand what the threats to this country are. We have threats domestically. We have threats externally. That external threat led by this world order, China, with Russia, is an absolute existential threat to the United States and Western civilization, and it has to be dealt with. And India better wake up, because China has no great love for India. They have their own problems on the border in terms of territory and interests. So if India thinks that they're playing a game that they can play both sides against the middle, they're going to wake up and be outplayed by China, because frankly, China is much shrewder than India in playing this game of international chess. Eric.
You're 100% correct that there's this axis of evil, this axis in connection between China, Russia, and North Korea and Iran as well. You can't. That's why you can't view the war in Gaza in isolation of the war in Ukraine, in isolation of the potential war in the Indo-Pacific and Taiwan. They are all interconnected, and that's why the Israelis must win in Gaza to deter China from invading Taiwan, and that's why we really need to, I think, pick up our game a little bit in support of Ukraine to push back on Russia. I think at this point it's pretty clear Putin has no interest in reaching any sort of settlement beyond complete surrender for Ukraine. So I think that's very important, and that connects also now back to India. India, I think, in part is lashing out at Trump because he imposed these tariffs on India and because they're buying oil from Russia. But India's question is, well, why are you putting all these tariffs on us, but why aren't you putting these tough tariffs on Russia? Not an unreasonable question.
That's a good question.
Not an unreasonable question. I do think that we really need at this point, President Trump has talked about putting on these secondary sanctions on Russia. I think it's time for that. But to your point, Richard, there is only so far that it's only the connection between how close India and China can get. They do have border disputes historically. China is also a close ally of Pakistan, which is an archenemy of India. That they're very competitive. They are no friend of one another. They recently just had a war that Trump, or on the cusp of a war that Donald Trump successfully negotiated, a ceasefire between them. So I think. But it is also noteworthy. I don't believe Modi attended the military parade. I think he left before that happened, and that was really just a China, Russia, and North Korea event. But the United States does need to wake up, and we do need a massive military buildup, and we've not done that. All portions of the armed forces really need a huge infusion of money, a huge infusion of men and women, and a huge infusion of munitions. We need to prepare ourselves because these people are preparing for war against us.
And they have to build up our industrial capacity, because you cannot win a war unless you have the industrial capacity to produce the weapons and the armaments 100%. That you need.
100%.
This has been Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank our guest from the first segment, Senator Ted Budd of North Carolina, for joining us this week. We look forward to being with you again next week. God bless you. God bless your families. And, of course, God bless America. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to Let the Record Show. You can hear Let the Record Show Sunday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
With Robinhood, not only can you trade individual stocks and ETFs, you can also seamlessly buy and sell crypto. at low costs. Trade all in one place. Get started now on Robinhood. Trading crypto involves significant risk. Crypto trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Crypto LLC. Robinhood Crypto is licensed to engage in virtual currency business activity by the New York State Department of Financial Services. Crypto held through Robinhood Crypto is not FDIC insured or SIPC protected. Investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Securities trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, a registered broker-dealer.